Hey everybody, it's Paula here from the Excel Club, and what we're going to look at in this lesson is the new xlookup function. Now the xlookup function was rolled out in Excel 365, so only those of you that are using Excel 365 will have the option to practice along with this lesson. The xlookup function is the predecessor to the existing VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP functions. Now, if you're familiar with looking up, both VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP are very, very popular functions, but they do have limitations. Limitations such as looking up to the left, or if you look up to the right and you insert a new row, that your xlookup tends to actually break. So we're going to look at how those limitations are removed using the xlookup function, and we're going to look at the match modes that are available when you're using xlookup in Excel. The syntax for xlookup is xlookup, and then it looks for a lookup value. So this is the value that you want to look up. After this, it looks for a lookup array. So that is, where is the value that you're looking up to be found? Then it wants to know what your return array is. Now after this, we have three further options. So these are optional. You don't have to use them. And we know that they're optional because they're included within those square brackets. So we have if not found. So that allows us to add a value if your lookup is not found. Match modes, which we're really going to delve into in this video, and search modes. So I have a very small table of data here to carry out an example on. We have some products, we have the sales rep, and we have the unit sold. And we're going to start by looking at exact matches. So first of all, we're going to look at an exact match using the old VLOOKUP function. And we're going to look up bananas in our products, and we're going to return our unit sold. So let's start with our VLOOKUP, and our VLOOKUP looks for our lookup value, which we have here in cell B14. It is bananas. Then it looks for a table array. Now a table array is not something that is looked for in the new xlookup function. The table array takes the entire table that you're looking things up in. Now I'm going to press F4 to lock those values in. Then it's looking for the column index number. So this is the column within the table that you want to return your lookup from. So we want to return the unit sold. So that's the third column in the table, 1, 2, 3. So we're going to return the third column in the table. Now when you're doing a VLOOKUP, the default for VLOOKUP is actually an approximate match. So if you want to do an exact match, you have to actually enter in exact match. We use false here to actually tell it that it is a exact match that we're looking for. So now that we've entered in all the criteria, we can see it returns the 1850. But what happens if we do the same lookup, but this time we look up a value that is not there, that can't be found? So let me just drag that down, and we see there we get an NA error. So it's looked up mangoes in our products column. It hasn't found it, so it returns an NA because the value is not found. Now how do we overcome this if we're using VLOOKUP? Well, to overcome this using VLOOKUP, we can select if NA, or we could select if error. But in this case, we just want to deal with the if NA errors. And then we can put in a value, for example, 0. So we want to return 0 if it doesn't find our lookup. And once we enter this, we can then add a value. So what we have to do is combine VLOOKUP with if NA. So we have to use two functions to accommodate for the fact that an item might not be found. Now let's take a look at these exact same examples now, but this time we're going to look at them using the new xlookup function. So we'll start by typing in xlookup, and the first thing it looks for is a lookup value. So it starts the same as our VLOOKUP, but then it looks for a lookup array. not a table array, a lookup array. So this is the column in which you want to look the value up in. After this, it wants a return array. So where is the array that you want to return a value from? So we want to return it from our unit sold. Now the default is an exact match when you're using xlookup. And although we have 3 further options, if not found, match mode and search mode, we can actually leave all 3 of these blank if we're doing an exact match. So for an exact match, our formula is actually really short. There's only 3 things that we've picked: a lookup value, a lookup array, and a return array. And we see that it looks up lemons and it returns for us our unit sold, our 1200 units sold. Now, what happens if we wanted to look something up that is not found? Well, we see when we were doing our VLOOKUP that we had to combine this with an if-NA or even an if-error function. Well, let's copy this formula down. And we see when we copy it down, we straight away get an NA. So I am going to F2 to edit this. And I'm going to press comma. And we have this if not found value. Now we left this blank the last time, but now we can actually specify something. Specify what we would like in here if the value is not found. So let's put in 0 and we can close our bracket and hit enter. So now mango isn't found because it's not in our products list, and with just using the 1 function instead of 2, we're able to put in a value if found. One of the other limitations of VLOOKUP is that you can only look to the right. So that means the first column of the table array that you select in VLOOKUP is the farmost left column that you want to look up the value in, and then it will only look up to the right from there. But with xlookup, you don't have to just look to the right. You can look to the left. You can also carry out hlookup, so you can look down or you can look up. So let's just have a look at looking to the left. So we will start with our xlookup, and it's looking for our lookup value. So our lookup value is Linda. We're looking for that in our sales rep column, but we want to return our products column. So we're looking up to the left. Now it's an exact match, and we could put in 0 for if it finds a name that, or if it doesn't find a name that we've suggested, we wanted to return a 0 and press enter. And we can see that Linda sold the product of grapes. We're going to look at wildcards now as well, because when you are dealing with wildcards, you also have to use the match mode. Now, when you're dealing with wildcards, there are 2 characters that are important. You have the question mark character, and the question mark character donates that just 1 character is missing, whereas the asterisk donates a string of undefined length. Now, if you have just 1 character missing within a word, you can include the question mark as your wildcard within the word. For example, we have P question mark A or S. Now we want to look up something similar to that in our products and return our units sold. So how would we go about that with our xlookup? Well, we would go to our lookup value. We would then go to our lookup array, which is going to be our products. After this, we want to go to our return array. We're going to put in a value if not found of 0, and next we have this match mode. Now we see here that in the match modes we have 4 options. We have exact match or next smallest item, exact match or next largest item, and then we have this wildcard character match. And this is highly important when you're using wild characters, that you select this option. So I'm just going to press enter. We've selected that and pressed enter, and it's now recognized that we're trying to look up pairs, and it's returned the value for pairs. Now that's if you just had 1 letter missing. But what if you had a string missing? Well, in that case, you need to use the asterisk. So let's start with our xlookup, and it's looking for our lookup value. Well, if we put in inverted commas an asterisk, and we join this with an ampersand to the text. So we have part of a word here, and we know there's a few letters missing from the start of this. So at the start, we will put asterisks representing undefined number of characters. Now, if there was characters at the end, you would also put an ampersand and asterisks in inverted commas after as well. But in this case, we know there's nothing after. So that's the value that we want to look up. Now it's looking for our array. So where are we looking it up? Where are we returning it from? If it's not found, we're going to put in a 0, and we are going to do number 2, select number 2, and I use the arrow key to go down to number 2, wild character match, and then press enter, and it knows that it's looking for lemons because it's the only one that ends in M-O-N-S, you see it up here, and it returns the units of 1200. So far what we have looked at is the exact match. But what if you want to look up an approximate match? Well, that's what we're going to look at now. So the exact match was the default, and we've seen, if we go back in here, and I'm going to press F2 to go back into edit mode. So we see in here our exact match of 0, that we don't need to select 0 if we want an exact match. We can leave it blank because it is the default setting. But if you want to find a match exact or above or exact or below, these are additional options that we had that we didn't have in VLOOKUP. So let's take a look at an example. We have some units and then we have some discounts. So we have a discount table. And basically, if we sell from 0 to 100 units, there's a 7% discount. If we sell between 100 and 250, there is a 10% discount. If we sell between 250 and 600, it's 15%. And if we sell between 600 and 1,000 units, they get a 20% discount. Now, note from that table that it is not sorted. If you're doing an approximate match with the older VLOOKUP functions, you would have to have this table sorted. But with xlookup, you don't have to have it sorted, and that is a really, really cool feature. So let's go ahead and look at this with a VLOOKUP. So the lookup value is, let's say we had 550 units ordered. We want to look it up in our table. We want to return the second column. Now we can take an approximate match, or we can actually leave that blank because approximate match with VLOOKUP is the default setting. Now that's after returning 7%. Because what happens is xlookup goes down through the table assuming that you have it sorted correctly, and it says, well, is 100 greater or less than 550? I mean, it says it's less than, so it jumps to the next number. And then it says, well, is 600 greater than or less than 550? And if it's greater than, it'll revert back to the previous number and then return the corresponding value for that. Now let's do this with an xlookup. First of all, we will look for the next smallest value. So we're going to take our 550. We are going to look it up in our lookup array. In our return array, we're going to select our return array. 0 if value is not found. Now into the match mode, we want to find the next smallest. So we seen when we looked at the VLOOKUP there, it went to the next biggest and then it went back to the next smallest and took the corresponding value from that. Well, this is the same when you select next smallest, is that it will go back to the next smallest, but the difference is the table does not have to be sorted. So now it's saying that is it greater than 100? It said yes. Is it greater than 250? It didn't jump down to this 600 and then go back. It went down to this 250. Is it greater than this? Yes, it's greater, but we want the next smallest, so we will take this one. We can also do an xlookup then with the next largest. So let's say we wanted to have the next largest percent, which would return the 15%. Well, we can select the value we want to look up. we can then select the lookup array, the return array. I'm going to put in 0 if value is not found, and then I'm going to select the next largest. So although it is an approximate match, it knows to move to the next largest. And we see there we have quickly got 15%. So now we have looked at the xlookup and we've looked at 2 of the optional features. We've looked at if not found and match mode. There also is a search mode, but that is outside the scope of this lesson. In the resources to this lesson, you will find this workbook, so you can practice along what you've been shown here. And this is a great function to master. Thank you very much for watching this lesson. My name is Paula Guilfoyle and it's been a pleasure.